This week on a podcast from beneath, it's the follow-up to our Friday 13th deep dive.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. The unburied dead are coming back to life, seeking human victims.
Mr. Poe, how's it going?
Doing great as always, sir. Glad to be back and glad to be on this round table. I missed the last one, so I got some interesting takes on it, and I really enjoyed listening to it, even though I wasn't there.
It was a fun one. Billy, how you
Yeah,
doing?
yeah, it sounded like.
I'm doing pretty good. How y'all doing?
I'm doing all right. I survived the chemical plant explosion, so
Holy
me
crap!
too.
that helps out.
Wait a minute.
5 minutes after we passed it, that's when it exploded.
What a chemical plant? What were they? I mean, what was the main thing over there? Are they just different chemicals, or
They just make different chemicals. DuPont
Really?
plant, yeah.
wow? Well, I'm glad y'all didn't get blown up.
Me
Now we could
too.
do an episode.
Yeah.
They had a shelter in place for like a 2-mile radius or something like that around the plant.
Jesus. I hope no one got hurt, but
Yeah, 2 people from the plant got hurt, I think.
really,
Like seriously injured.
all I know is if y'all blew up, I do the equivalent of Radar when he read that little note about what's his name that went down on the plane. I'll do that for y'all.
Oh, okay, we appreciate that. And Eric, how you doing?
I am doing quite well, sir. Thank you for having me back for the 13 part 2 time.
Yes.
Last time it was the 13th, but this is
It's like 13.2.
no, that could have been appearance 13, the final chapter.
Right.
And
Oh, the final.
slash Eric lives.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what you should name the episode, Carrie.
Something like that, yeah. I'll work something out.
Eric
And
lives.
Megan, how are you doing?
I am doing all right. I am very sorry to hear about the chemical explosion, but also that's very West Virginia.
It is.
Eric, you do not grow up in West Virginia, so you do not know about these chemical spills and like mine collapses, and you're very fortunate to not know some of these things.
Technically the
Virginia
second one I
wasn't that
survived.
far.
I think didn't Bayer have one like 15 years ago or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. A couple years ago, there was a train that blew up close to my house, so that
Oh,
that
wow.
was exciting. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Friday the 13th. And Billy, since you weren't here on the first episode, give us your thoughts on Friday the 13th.
Like as a series as a whole, or the first 4 movies?
Stick with the first 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first one's probably the best one, of course, and then the second one I like is the 4th one with Corey Feldman. I really like that one a lot. I like the character of Tommy Jarvis. Thought he was a good character. I wish we could have seen him a little bit more in more of the franchise, except for just 3 movies he was in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, the second movie, first appearance of Jason. Can't beat that. And the third one, really can't remember too much. The third one. Which one was the third one? The one with the mother's head, or was that the second one?
The third one is in 3D.
Yeah. 3D.
That's its sort of like most remarkable feature.
It's when he first gets his mask.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At least slightly less remarkable than the fake lake that they built.
You like the mask, or you like him with the sack on his head?
Had a whole big fight about this.
I think we-
Oh no. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think all 3 of us said Sackhead.
Yeah.
Billy, what about you?
I think Sackhead.
That's right. That's the best one. Mr. Poe, what about you? Sackhead or mask?
I've always loved the Jason from part 2. And when I listened to that episode, by the way, if someone's just tuning in, check out the first one. A lot of good stuff. I agree with Eric about the freaking hockey mask. And I don't want to get too far into. I know we're asking Billy questions. We hadn't seen Billy in such a long time. I'll get into that later. But yeah, go ahead, Billy. What else did you want to talk about on that?
With the sack, with Jason with the sack on his head, I think he looks a little bit more scarier because like,
Yeah,
is his whole face messed up or what's going on here?
yeah,
But with the mask, you can kind of see his face a little bit. So I think the sackhead's the most menacing Jason.
yeah. I agree.
All right, Mr. Poe, what about your thoughts on the first four?
My thoughts on the first four. Favorite one, part two. Part one was awesome for when it came out, and I won't stay too long on that, but it was really cool to see that reveal at the end. It really was, and especially I'm so freaking jealous that at that time I was a little kid, didn't even know what the hell was going on, but I would have loved to have been to the theater to see that. Part two always been my favorite, always will be. Just for the simple fact of Jason's got the sackhead. He looks like just a deranged hillbilly. You know what I mean? Especially when the sack comes off, that's what he looked like to me. But in part three, I mean, I like part three as well. Part three has some funny stuff in it. Of course, all the especially if you go back and you see like a documentary of how much work it took to use that freaking 3D camera. I mean, back in the day, that was a feat in itself, and that I give much respect to. Of course, we had some iconic characters out of there. Shelley, Fox, R.I.P. Fox. I can't remember her the actress's name, but she was awesome in that movie. And then of course, sorry,
not to cut you off, but when I was a kid, being in elementary school when that movie came out, there was this rumor that was going around not long after when the Cosby Show came on that Fox was actually Felicia Rashad, a young Felicia Rashad. Any sort of evidence or facts or anything like that, but it was this weird sort of Mandela effect or urban legend that went around that the mom on the Cosby Show was Fox in Friday the 13th Part 3. And
wow, I didn't. All I know is, she is one of my favorite characters. I do know that, and it kind of sucked how she died, but oh well. In the movie, it sucked she died in real life, but in the movie, it really. I was like, oh man, that chick got it. And then part four, of course, we got little Corey Haim in there.
Corey Feldman.
Sorry. I better get this right because my wife was huge into those guys. She was like a teenager when those guys were big. But yeah, Corey Feldman. And that one, the one thing that I really love about that is when the last kill with Jason gets the machete through the head and how he falls down. That was pretty cool. Other than that, Tommy Jarvis, how he they kind of played off of what was it, part two, when she puts on the sweater, they kind of played off of that where Corey Feldman shaved his head, kind of looked like a meth head coming down the steps. And Jason was confused, like, is that me? As a kid. But that's the only thing that I really dug about part four. I'm not going to hate on it completely, but I'm more the effects guy. I like the special effects in some of these, or practical effects. So that was my favorite one out of those movies, that practical effect when the machete, I thought that looked pretty cool.
All right. Before we move on to the next film, though, there was something we did forget to talk about.
Uh-oh.
And that was the dancing.
Crispin Glover's dancing?
Yeah.
No, we did not forget to talk about. Let's forget it happened. No, very cool.
It'd be funny if like Jason was about to kill somebody. Get your damn hands off her.
He has one of the girls and
yeah.
Get your damn hands off her and smacks him right in the face with a fist.
Eric, cool. Megan, do you got anything to say about the dancing?
Beautiful. It was iconic. The track that they played to it was incredible because what song were they playing? like when they were actually doing the filming.
Oh man, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Back in Black.
Yeah. So that kind of explains a little bit, but
Because
also
there was like a staccato
Yeah,
sort of
'cause he was
dancing
just-
that he was doing, and and so he's like
he's
doing all
like,
that
yes,
crazy shit
just
to it.
he's riffing. Yeah.
But then they put a song on there because they couldn't use that in the
Of
movie.
course not. You
So
couldn't get the rights.
the song is by this really awful 80s
Yes.
glam band that did never go that far called
Yeah.
Lion. And it's
No way.
It's
music.
a total mismatch.
It's a total mismatch.
But it's magical.
But if that's an example of like what
Yeah.
piece of music you used completely changes the entire scene.
Because
Yeah.
Yes.
dancing that way to that music. If he had been, if it had actually been AC/DC, it would have made complete and total sense.
It would have looked, but in a different way. We
Right.
would have gone, "Oh, he's awesome and cool,"
Right.
rather
Yeah.
than no sense of self space or social logistics.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
I
look
thought
up.
that was just Crispin Glover being Crispin Glover
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes sense now because I mean, he's like, yeah, let's rock out. And the music.
Well, now I want to try to find a video. There's got to be a video somewhere where someone's put that music back on there.
Yes.
Okay, I got to find that now.
Yeah, definitely, dude. Now, the disco band. I've been trying to look it up. The disco band in part 3, the intro. Wasn't it called White Fire or what was it? White. Oh my God! It was made up. It's a made up band. It's not even a real band.
Hot Ice.
Hot Ice. Damn. I don't know why I couldn't remember that.
Harry Manfredini, who writes the scores for the first, I guess, 6 films, and then the 8th, and then the 9th, I think, also. But yeah, he's and the 10th. But no, he like recorded this disco track so it could be released in dance clubs and whatnot.
Mhm.
And he used a fake band name, but it's still the same like stuffy old white guy.
Yeah.
All right, so part 4 leaves us with there wasn't a jump scene, right?
No, it was the Tommy opens his eyes.
Opens his eyes, right?
Basically announces that the Jason saga is over, but we can expect a follow-up, sort of sequel series about Tommy Jarvis being the killer.
So then when part 5 starts up, we're seeing Tommy Jarvis witnessing with someone digging up his grave, right? Digging up Jason's grave.
No. Is it?
Yes, it does technically open with like baby Tommy Jarvis watching the grave, and
Oh, okay.
they brought what's his face, the little boy actor
Feldman.
Corey Feldman. They could only get him for like 1 day of shooting because he was in the middle of doing the Goonies, right?
Yes.
And so they literally did this like in his backyard, those shots of him in like what, half an hour or 45 minutes?
Yeah, it's like if you notice, Corey Feldman never actually interacts with the Jason or the grave robbers.
Yeah.
And he's always just looking through the branches. They just filmed that with like a rain machine or like a hose head and just got his reactions. And for all the scenes where you see him walking, they're all from behind, and it's like this very short adult woman in the raincoat wandering around through there. But can we also establish, for anybody that's listening to this as a part 2, that we have discussed so far sort of like the legend of Jason Voorhees and how it keeps changing from movie to movie?
Yeah.
And now where they're going in part 5.
Oh, yeah.
He was a little kid, special needs kid. He drowned. His mother went crazy, poisoned the lake, set a bunch of fires, started killing Steve Christie's people when they decided to come back and reopen the camp. At which point, Mrs. Voorhees is killed by Alice, and then Alice is attacked by a preteen Jason.
Potentially Dream Jason.
3 months later, he appears adult, man-sized, and
It's like a total legend also. Like
with different hairstyles.
Right. He goes and he kills Alice. 5 years later, he's this legend all around Crystal Lake area, and he wears a sack over his head, And it turns out that it's because he's got this extreme alopecia and his hair only grows in one part. It's really, really long. He gets a machete to the clavicle, appears to be dead, might have jumped through a window,
Maybe.
might have returned with a ghost dog muffin. We don't know. Been a dream in Ginny's mind, but regardless, we see at the beginning of part 3 that he climbs up, somehow takes the machete out of his shoulder, goes to the roadside store, steals some clothes. Did he shave his head? He is bald.
He's bald now.
But he's putting on the personal clothes that belong to the male shopkeeper. And when Chris has her PTSD flashback to maybe Jason raped her, he's bald and wearing the same clothes that he took later from the convenience store. But I digress. Then he takes an axe wound to the head. He takes an axe to the head and goes to the morgue.
Wakes up.
Somehow wakes up.
Murders hospital people, horny hospital people.
But then is confronted by a strange ghost of Christmas past in the form of a pop-collared Tommy Jarvis who's shaved his head and is trying to look like little Jason. There's maybe a soul transference because Tommy keeps whispering, "Remember, Jason, remember." And Jason is moving slowly towards Tommy, and it's like there's something between them, and you don't know what's going to happen.
And then they kiss.
And then they make and then after that, Tommy loses his shit, kills Jason, not only because Jason is trying to kill him, but because Jason killed Tommy's mother.
Yes.
Who in the deleted scene is upstairs drowned in the tub.
Yes.
And then rises up. So at any rate, we are to understand now that he has taken a machete to the head, done a face slide down to the floor. It's gone into his brain. He is dead. He's for real dead.
For sure dead.
He's for sure dead. But are we also agreeing that the only way this continuity makes sense is if he did in fact survive the drowning and did in fact live like a hermit and was not in fact supernatural at all, but simply was some kind of force of nature that refused to die when it was after you, like a shark on your scent.
I would say that's what makes sense at this juncture.
But now he's dead.
But
right?
now he's dead.
He's dead.
I mean, yes, he's definitely dead.
Is he dead?
He's dead. I say he's dead.
He's dead.
Okay, for reals. And we're also saying that he never died by drowning, because if he did die by drowning, what we have been watching is
already a zombie.
Already a zombie, but is unkillable because he's a zombie.
Yeah, I would say that he did not drown and he survived and he lived in the woods and then he killed people and then he's dead. Because
his mother was real bad at looking for him in the woods and stuff.
Okay, all right, just making sure we're all on the same.
Yeah, well, I agree with Megan. I think because I was listening to the first one, and that is weird how, you know, it's not really consistent. You see him as a kid and all this. What the hell? How's he become a full-grown man and this and that? I think that he was a part of the first movie. You know, when you do see that, and they don't mean it to be. This is just my little, you know, theory of it. Is I do think that he was a part of it, and his mom was crazy, and you know, at the end, she's telling her story, and of course, gets her head cut off. Now, Jason, he probably did live in a little shack out in the woods, and that's where he took his mom's head. So I don't think he was a little kid in the water. I think that whole thing was probably just maybe it's just, you know, Crystal Lake is haunted or something. I don't know. I can't explain that part. Maybe but I do think that he did live in the woods with his mom's head. He picked it up at the end of part one, and then we get what we have now. And I agree with y'all again with him dying, and I guess his spirit, you know, he's a zombie now after that one.
What if he did drown, but his mom saved him, and then was like they didn't pay attention to him. He could have died. So she knew he was alive the whole time, and she just started killing him because she hates camp counselors.
Well, that's where you start going into the whole conspiracy theory of did Mama Voorhees have an accomplice in the original Friday the 13th, because bodies are getting thrown through windows.
Yeah.
It would appear to be a strong younger man rather than an older woman. So you start getting into that conspiracy theory. I have another theory, and I have never spoken of it before. And for your listeners, as I just vomited repeatedly last episode, I believe that these movies are more, particularly the first four, are more interesting due to the fact that there are so many unanswered plot points. Like, so little of it makes sense that it makes it more interesting trying to piece it together in your brain. Because again, we're operating under the assumption that there's no supernatural. This is a story about a guy who kills people, and we got dreams and weird shit like that, but no ghosts, no zombies, nothing like that. So when we operate under those assumptions, it gets real interesting to sort of look at the in-movie clues. And when we talked about Sleepaway Camp, one of the things we were talking about was, remember Ricky in the doorway, and saying that because that was, meant to be a female person in that scene or in that shot, but they used a male, that even though we know the reason why they did it behind the scenes, that is text now in the movie. That is a boy dressed like a girl standing in that doorway. And then you're allowed to start coming up with alternative ideas and whatnot. And so my thing with Friday the 13th is, I think the fact that in every movie, the fact that he never looks the same twice has significance. Because we look at it and go, oh, this is just one that, that's the one Carl Fullerton did, or Tom Savini redesigned it for, part 4 or whatever. I think the fact that every time a mask comes off and he has a completely different face, where he has hair or doesn't have hair, has something to do with the eye of the beholder.
Interesting.
And that perhaps we are seeing Jason as Jason appears to the final girl of that specific film, and we can draw interpretations about why his body language is different, why his forms of killing are different, or attack, running, not running, walking slow. I think that we've all got our Jason.
That's very interesting. What does that mean for part 5, where it's no longer a final girl and now it's
and part 5 was like one of the most hated ones, and I actually enjoy it, but a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I guess the thing is, people either like 2, 4, or 6, right? That's their favorite ones.
Yeah.
But Billy, what's your favorite one?
And favorite one. And Jason Takes Manhattan holds a special place in my heart, because it was the only Friday the 13th movie that I had on VHS, and I watched the shit out of it.
Solid choice. I love Jason.
Hey, you know what? Yeah, good on you.
And I like the 5th one a lot too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know you told me that the 5th one was up there on your list.
Also my favorite. Yeah, 5th one, and Takes Manhattan.
So what do you like about 5?
I like about 5. I don't know. I like seeing Tommy Jarvis and like how he's dealing with the aftermath of what happened in the 4th one.
That's pretty cool.
And you get to see how his life's been, and it hasn't been too kind to him. He's still suffering some bad flashbacks from when he killed Jason, and some of the kills in there is just brutal, especially with Shelley. That was unexpected. I remember when I first watched it. I didn't think Shelley was going to die. Or is that his name, Shelley? Or
no.
What
was his name? Eric? Can we go to Eric? What was the curly head kid's name? Oh my God.
Joey.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Shelley's in part 3.
Yeah.
And here's where we get to the further dark conspiracy theory. I will not say the actor's name on this podcast. I will say only that it is an unsubstantiated rumor in Hollywood
Oh yeah, I've heard about this. Yeah.
Corey,
Go ahead. I haven't, so go ahead.
Corey Feldman alleges that both he and Corey Haim were raped and in many ways sexually assaulted by older men when they were children, and that it was sort of pedophilia was a thing. Pedophilia and rape were a thing in Hollywood that was kind of an open secret that nobody would talk about. And
Wow.
the actor who plays, who takes the axe as he's eating the chocolate bars,
Yeah.
that is allegedly, according to Feldman, somebody who raped he and Corey Haim. And he just died within the past few years, I believe. I would have to look that up.
Oh, the actor. Okay.
Feldman is still with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I know what you're talking about. The actor that we're not going to mention.
May he rest in piss.
Other than him offering a chocolate. See, and that's another thing. When they go to this place, Tommy is, he's disturbed or whatever. But some of the characters are surrounded by it. Like, I guess we'll call that one guy with the chocolate bar. I guess he's, I don't know how I would describe him. I guess he would be mentally challenged a little bit. But then you got a violent guy with access to an axe. I mean, he's like a punk looking dude and he's just violent. I mean, some of these were violent people and some of them were just, not all there or trying to get help and rehabilitated, I guess.
What was that halfway house?
That's what I was gonna say.
That's what I'm confused.
I didn't
Go
know
ahead.
They were
They-
trying
I
to
didn't
get
know what they
him
said.
back into society instead of just keeping him in a.
Well, all Tommy did was
mental
make
hospital.
masks. That's all he did. He was disturbed, but he made masks. He was busy with his hands. He was trying to.
There are a lot of very ill-defined people with issues in this place, covering a wide variety of age ranges.
Mm-hmm.
Mix of kids that like the two kids that go off and have sex. It seems like that's their only issue is that they're
They're horny.
Yeah.
and so they're
Yeah.
in a halfway house.
And then there's a dude.
Yeah.
And that one chick has the headphones on. She can't stop, listening to music.
Yeah, she's like, she's like pop locking and shit, but it's like she dresses like Debbie Harry. I mean, I don't understand what her issue is. A kid with a stutter. I don't know what his issue is. But then you get Tommy Jarvis showing up and he knows Kung Fu inexplicably. And he goes in.
I know Kung Fu.
He knows Kung Fu, and he also has a distinct receding hairline.
And then there's fucking Vic who's chopping wood.
He's
and
clearly in his mid-30s.
Yeah, I was gonna say, his arms are so muscular because he wood every day for all 37 years of his life.
But
He chopped wood.
but my thing is he looks violent, and they're like, okay, you're going to be in this halfway house, and then he's just
they're
has
they're
access
lucky
to an
he
axe.
didn't kill him.
I mean, it's just like, I'm so frustrated at the world, I'm going to chop wood. That doesn't make any. Probably back in the 40s or 1800s they did that, but I mean,
this movie notoriously with a lot of cocaine on the set.
oh man, that must have been a party.
Impromptu music acts sprinkled throughout, I think, were heavily influenced by this. I mean, the two greaser guys singing about taking a shit.
What the
And
fuck?
Yeah, that
then-
came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Greaser.
You better start the car. I'm gonna kick your ass.
Like, I'm gonna go take a crap. Crap my ass.
Like, huh?
Crap my ass.
Crap my ass. It's
And I know we mentioned the two running off to have sex. We actually got to talk to Deborah Sue Voorhees, and she's a very awesome lady.
He seems cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we might as well go and say it. Jason's not in this movie, right?
No, we've and
If anybody
that's
hasn't
why a
seen
lot
it.
of people don't like it.
Well, what I was going to bring up, because you bring up that we talked to Deborah Voorhees.
Yeah.
She had said something on that episode that she thought it would have been a better idea if they would have played it up to where the axe guy, if they would have played it up to where you thought maybe he was the killer.
Yeah. Well, he's already violent. And,
Yeah, but I was want to see what Eric and Megan thought about that.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think like there are a multitude of red herrings in this movie,
Mhm.
and it really does. If you've seen it once, then you kind of see the hints that it's the paramedic who did it, but it's really not. It's not obvious.
You talking to me, Megan? I thought you were talking to me.
What if it was like the redneck son? It was a plot twist and it was him the whole time.
Yeah. I don't get that. Like,
not well structured. It's not guided well in the direction.
no.
It's kind of a fun one, I think, for, like I said, all the impromptu musical numbers and like some of the ridiculous
baby. Ooh, baby. He's taking a shit too.
Damn
a lot of
enchiladas.
shit in this movie.
It's a memorable movie, in spite of the fact that it really doesn't have Jason in it or even a satisfying fake Jason.
But the thing is that you have to remember that something that's so often overlooked is that the original Friday the 13th was a whodunit.
Yeah.
Right? It was a whodunit, and
yeah,
you did not know who the killer was, and that was part of the fun, trying to figure out who it might be. And then they totally fucking cheat at the end of the movie, but nonetheless,
yes.
And Friday the 13th Part 5, they decided they were going to make it a whodunit again, which is not a betrayal of the series' roots, but if it had been any other masked character than Jason, if they'd been smart and said, whoever it was, whether it was Tommy Jarvis or some other kid at this halfway house, stole one of Tommy's masks and has started wearing Tommy's mask. Is it Tommy wearing a second skin? Is it somebody who, I don't know, but you're left to sort of guess who it is, and it becomes a new killer, a new Jason, a new whatever, instead of making it fake Jason.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to make him fake Jason. Also want to know who got that fucking newspaper picture of Jason.
Yeah.
Who survived?
Like the big.
Wouldn't it be crazy if Roy was also the father of Jason? That's why he kept those newspaper clippings.
Dude,
Anything would be better.
I'll tell you, the only way to piss off people more about this movie, and it probably would have been a better ending, is if Tommy Jarvis just woke up out of a sweat and it was all a dream. And then he wakes up and he goes and opens the shower and Patrick Duffy's in there.
Such a mistake by deciding, number one, that they were going to announce, they, by which I mean Paramount Pictures, decided that they're going to announce this is the end of this franchise. And they put out Part 4, which is, I'm Part 2 guy all the way, but I'm also going to recognize Part 4 is probably the best made of the series. And they put that movie out with that cast and that hook, and it blows up, becomes huge at the box office, and they immediately rush a Part 5 into production, calling it a new beginning. And it comes out less than a year after the hype of the final chapter. You had to have done something so fucking special with this movie to justify its existence. And just making it another Jason movie sucks. Just sucks. When you just ended it.
Now, I do have something, and Eric, you can identify with me because you have a son. If you're a paramedic and you show up and your son has been hacked to death with an axe, and I have 2 boys, so I've been like, I see it from a father aspect, like, oh my God, you would, he played it cool as a cucumber. He's like, oh yeah, okay, let's cover him up. I'm going to get my revenge on him, just go and kill everyone. It's like, I would be so distraught that I couldn't even think that clearly to think, I'm going to get revenge right now. Like days later, I don't care how, maybe if you didn't really love his son and you just wanted to kill people. I don't get that. That's where they lose me anyway.
Right. We had to know something. I I mean, he does stare at the camera for like 30 seconds there, you know. And
My
the
assumption,
movie
though, was
telling
that
us
Go ahead.
it was, but I mean, regardless of all that, we don't get a lot of who Mrs. Voorhees is in the first movie, but she leaves monologues for us about her relationship with her son who drowns and dies, and we can all sort of universally relate to, you know, the parent and child relationship and what
Yeah.
one of us died in that pairing, you know. So my parent is killed or I'm killed. Regardless of all that, the fact is that we had enough with Mrs. Voorhees that we cared about that story and about Jason.
Mhm.
We get nothing with Roy. Nothing. Nothing at all. We don't know why his kid is living in a halfway house. We don't know where the mom is. We don't even know what's wrong with Joey.
Mhm.
Oh, the mother died in childbirth, I think.
They went that far? Wow.
Yeah,
I
when they
didn't
were
know
like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was when
when
they were at
showed
the hospital or something, or they were talking about how the father was never mentioned and
Oh,
so he
okay.
died in
Okay.
childbirth.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
All right. I stand corrected. Then, but how is it then that Roy has a recent picture of Joey in his wallet?
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
He just took a picture of him one day. Joey doesn't even
Dude,
remember.
it was picture day at the crazy house, okay? The halfway house or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but based on that picture and then the events that unfold in that scene, he would have had to have been like this. Oh, okay, you're 27 now. I'm going to send you to a halfway house. Drives him to the halfway house, drops him off, goes home. A week later, gets a call that there has been an axe killing at the halfway house. He gets in the car, drives there, not expecting to see his son, and is somehow inexplicably horrified to learn that one of the people who died at this place that has maybe 6 or 7 people in it just happens to be his son.
Maybe he used the picture as a sad story to get like some tail at bars. Yeah, this is my son. I don't get to see him anymore.
He's down there at the house.
I don't know where he's at.
Lost his mind.
I think this is definitely one of those movies from this era, and I say this a lot about these kinds of things, where it's like everyone was doing a lot of cocaine, and everyone was like, it's a good idea, and everyone else was like, yeah, that really is a good idea. Let's do it now, and then nobody ever looked back to question it.
I think it was Paramount being like we need it done in 3 weeks. Who can we get to do it in 3 weeks? And they call fucking Danny Steinman, who just he cut his teeth on porn, and
So does.
it's
There's a lot of breasts in this movie. This is probably when it starts to get exploitative. And I'm thinking explicitly of the "It's showtime" that is in this movie, right?
it
That
is
this one.
But you got all these people who are like, none of them care.
Yeah.
None of them care about this movie. It's not like anyone is sitting there and be like, we are making Citizen Kane. They're going, we got Blow. We've got a per diem that we get to spend as we're out here shooting and kind of living in a remote area and in California, and let's just party. Let's have a good time. And so every day on set is a fucking party. And then you end up with this movie that feels like it's on speed because everybody was on speed, and it completely changes the entire flavor of the franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, it like, this is like going from, really quality brick oven pizza to Sparrows.
Yes.
Well put.
Story-wise, this one's definitely the weakest of the franchise. And also not as bloody as some of the other ones. We don't even see a lot of kills in this movie.
Not really. You're right.
See like blood squirting and stuff.
Yeah,
That's about
it. Oh, and come on, the garden shears right through, Deborah's eyes. That was a pretty rough scene. I mean, that was pretty cool.
Well, we talked about that too. You don't actually see it though. Everybody thinks that they've seen it.
The guy who runs the place, he looks familiar. What has he been in?
He was Dora dude from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, who gives young Indy.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
wow, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was wondering the whole time I was watching. I was like, "Who the fuck is this guy? He looks so
He
familiar."
gives old River Phoenix his hat. Yeah, I know who you're talking about now. Like 2 seconds, and I mean, he's not really. It's just there long enough for you to recognize him, I guess. Later,
Yeah,
like,
he's got one of those faces.
Yeah.
Friday the 13th Part 5 is, it was a gateway for him to be able to do that. And, that's very cool because you see a lot of young actors, also special effects people, and really talented individuals who sort of start off on these cheesy little horror films that are, kind of corporate write-offs that get a lot of money. And it's a really, really cool thing to see these little films giving people the opportunity to become Kevin Bacon, or to become Tom Savini. It's awesome when that happens. And we get Dudley from Different Strokes. Reggie.
Yeah.
We get the guy from Return of the Living Dead. What's his name?
Demon.
Yeah. Well, I think he said he was homeless. Was it before he did Return of the Living Dead, or was it this movie? And then after he was that, he wasn't homeless anymore. I can't remember which movie it was. Yeah, he was a struggling actor until then.
We also get, I mean, like this was pretty big to me, like in horror movies, the smartest black character, and that was Reggie.
Yeah.
Because at the end, whenever Jason is coming after him, and I can't remember what was the woman's name.
Oh, she's so terrible. She's the worst. I hate her so much.
And when he shows up, Reggie just runs. He just runs away.
He's like,
yeah,
bye.
and then she forgot how to run and how to get up. She kept just falling.
Yeah, but I think you guys forget that even though he comes out with the tractor or whatever, and he's a proactive character and he's doing the right things, he then ultimately traps himself in the loft and is literally able to do nothing as Jason climbs up the ladder, walks toward him, and moves the hay bales. He can't do anything. He even just stands up and he's like, "Please don't kill me." And suddenly is like really weirdly out of character. I mean, was he supposed to be bait? And if he was bait, why did they do it? Why did they not act sooner?
My assumption was that he was kind of like baiting Jason at that point. Yeah, that was sort of the impression I got from that. But with this,
he went to do it to give him some time, probably.
But how does Roy survive being hit with or whatever, and what should have broken his leg bones?
I would say he does not. But
it's vengeance. Vengeance does it to you. You can't die when you're on vengeance.
So now, did Roy know that about Jason? Yeah, and Tommy's history. That way.
Oh, I'm sure he had those clippings. I'm sure he studied on it and shit. That's all he cared about. Not even his son. Cared about Jason so much that he dropped his own son off to the place.
Argue then that had Tommy Jarvis not been at this halfway house, that Roy wouldn't necessarily have dressed as Jason Voorhees? Are we saying that he deliberately wanted to frame a specific person? But if he did, why would it be Tommy Jarvis when Tommy Jarvis he wasn't? I mean, like, everybody at the halfway house dies except for the fucker who actually axed Joe.
Yeah. It's, man, I bet we could do a whole episode on 5. There's so many questions. I think that's why people hate it so much, is because it doesn't make sense. You're right. The guy that killed his son did not die. He gets taken away, by the cops. So, why frame Tommy? I mean, oh my God. My mind's racing right now. I'm remembering this movie. I'm like, holy crap, there's so many holes in it that it's just crazy.
In a franchise that does not make sense.
It doesn't.
For a variety of reasons. this one is especially sloppy, in a way that makes it. I think it makes it fall apart. Some of them are interesting for the questions that they leave you with. I find that this one is a little bit discombobulated.
Yeah, and I find part 4 really did seem to suggest that a part 5 or a part 1A or whatever was going to be continuing adventures of Tommy Jarvis. Yeah. Crazy now, and so that teases that at the end of 4, and then it gives you the possibility that that's what's happening in A New Beginning.
Yeah.
But at the same time, does so sort of lethargically that you're kind of looking at it and going, wait a minute, it's gonna be somebody. It's not really Tommy who's doing that. They're trying to make me think it's Tommy, but it's not Tommy. It's the fucking paramedic. But the movie ends exactly how the last movie ended, and that is Tommy is going to become the killer in the next one. If it had been any other ending, just something else, even if it suggested the exact same idea that next one Tommy really is going to be killing people, it would have been less infuriating than literally telling me that if the last one ended the same way as this one, that means nothing I just watched is consequential in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm sure if the movie was probably well received and everything, they probably would have made Tommy the killer in the movies, but since it didn't do very good, they're like, oh shit, we better bring Jason back.
Would you have liked it more if it was Tommy the killer, if he was the killer? And would you have wanted him to put the hockey mask on?
That's a really good question. I think that possibly yes, but I think that that would be a decision from a completely different group of people. So it's sort of hard to project that, because this is kind of a situation where what we got is sort of what we got. I think that if you're going to make another Jason movie after 4, then that would be a logical direction to go. And I don't think this is a series where you should try to pull the rug out from under people and try and trick people, because it doesn't need to be that complicated. So yeah, I think that if Tommy Jarvis had kind of slowly developed into the killer or something, that would have been an interesting journey.
And these horror franchises from the 80s, these episodic sort of series, they all have had that situation where they've made a movie that was, whether intentionally or unintentionally, out of step with the rest of the series.
Yes.
Which caused a lot of fan backlash. And it's you get to do that one time and then course correct. And we'll be okay if you only do it one time. If you keep doing it, that's where the problem lies. And so, with Halloween, you had Halloween 3, and it pissed everybody off. And then they hard pivoted back to, did the more of the Laurie Strode family shit for part 4 and 5 and everything after. And, with Nightmare on Elm Street, it was sort of the same thing with part 2, trying to go into a, sort of male protagonist area. Anyway, the point is, this is a series that kind of keeps soft rebooting itself with every installment.
Yeah, this one's the most flexible every time it comes back.
It keeps turning into something different.
Which, again, is kind of what I like about it. It can do what it wants to do, because it's, as we mentioned a lot last time, it's stupid. These movies are dumb. They're not thinking too much. So you can change the way Jason looks and it's fine. You don't have to question it too much, because we weren't thinking about it that much in the first place. And I think it's more revealing in most of these movies of sort of psychological things than if they'd been well thought out. But that's just, I like these. and I also think they're dumb, and I love that they're a little bit dumb.
But I don't like where they go after this, because as much as 5 is, the least, if we look at the first 4, I'm still a part 2, then part 1, then part 4, then part 3. 5 becomes a part 5 here.
Yeah.
Because at least you could argue that it's an epilogue to the series, because again, we're still dealing with real people in real time and space, and we haven't introduced the supernatural to the series. Part 6, suddenly it's a different thing. And I don't
one.
I got a question. Tommy in the fifth one, he's messed up, he's quiet, but then the sixth one, he's more talkative. He doesn't seem like he's very disturbed anymore. You think it's
They
because
fixed him at the halfway house.
Yeah.
They fixed him.
You think it's because someone else played Tommy and they brought their own interpretation of Tommy, or what? What do you think?
He's not the same character from episode.
Yeah. And I would say that like the next one is more heavily like leaning into, it was trying a little bit harder, I think, to connect with like the teenage MTV sort of like generation. Yes.
I think it was an early attempt that then Nightmare on Elm Street would really do in the third and the fourth ones. But yeah, I mean, it had an Alice Cooper song on the soundtrack, and music video for it. So yeah.
You know what I found funny? It's like the whole time, Tommy's like, I want to make sure he's dead, and then like they don't kill him in this one, but he's like, it's over. It's finally over. And it's like, dude, it was over until you fucked up. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he kind of shows up at the beginning and resurrects Jason, and then runs around trying to figure out how to kill Jason again.
Yeah.
So we all have Tommy Jarvis to thank for everything that happens after part 5.
Yeah.
So with
and
this
then,
one,
then like he gets in the lake and he's like, it's over. It's finally over.
So this one
dead.
here, this is the first time that we get Jason, and we can all assume that this is supernatural zombie Jason.
Oh yeah.
Because he's resurrected with a lightning strike after he kills Horshack.
Yeah.
Or before he kills Horshack.
Right before, yeah.
Interesting that he was resurrected by a lightning bolt a la Frankenstein, considering part 5 told us he was cremated.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not sure how there was a grave or a body in that coffin.
Maybe that's just what they told all the locals, but the family of Jason was like, oh, well, we'll just tell everybody he's cremated to keep everybody's emotions like down, so they're like all chill, like there's not even a body left, but we're gonna like actually stick his
fan theory. Fan theory.
Oh, yeah.
All right, hit us.
Alert. Part 5 opens up with a very visceral nightmare sequence that Tommy Jarvis is beholding, in which we see 2 people digging up the grave of Jason Voorhees. And
foreshadowing.
Right? So part 6 opens with
that exact same scene, only this time it's Tommy Jarvis who's actually
it's Tommy and it's Horshack, and they're in the cemetery and they dig him up, and it sort of turns part 5 into like a fever dream premonition, because it's not a literal 1-to-1.
Right.
But my feeling now is it not arguable that perhaps because the precedent was set in part 5, that Tommy has these dreams, these nightmares about Jason coming back from the dead?
Is it like a premonition?
Is part 6 his dream, and it keeps going?
This is,
everything. It's just like zombie Jason. You cannot kill him. He keeps coming back. It's Tommy's nightmare.
So they're doing like a Saint Elsewhere type thing, where like everything's just in Tommy's head, like after part 5.
Exactly.
I think you could totally make that argument. Yeah, that like basically everything from here on out is like on these dreams.
It's like when you've got a terrible respiratory infection, you're on lots of antibiotics and a raging fever, and you're lying in bed in that strange twilight zone between waking and sleep, and reality is getting really smeary and smudgy. That is exactly what's happening.
So you're saying,
and that's why they keep changing, and like they get so weird, and then he goes to space. It's like, oh my god! So check this out. I had this dream, and I'm like,
hey, finally, we should make a movie. Have Tommy Jarvis wake up. He's like, man, I had some strange dreams.
It just gets weirder and weirder, and then we went to space, and
oh man.
Yeah, it was like we were for some reason we were going to New York because the lake opened.
And somebody started eating Jason and becoming him, and it got weird.
Well, that would also the dream would also explain why the killings are more outrageous. There's a lot more nudity, and he looks different. He's a more buff
Yeah.
athletic.
Well, he was
than
working out when he
in
was
real life.
underwater.
No, I'm talking about Tommy Jarvis.
Oh,
Yeah,
Tommy
In
Jarvis.
his dream, he's more
Well,
buff.
now, didn't they originally want Tommy Jarvis to be
Yeah,
the new antagonist?
Well, they wanted the guy that played him in the 5th one to reprise his role in the 6th, and he turned it down. That's what they got. What's his name? Tom
Tom
Matthews.
Matthews.
No, but wasn't that the original idea to have Tommy Jarvis take the helm after that?
I'm not sure.
Definitely setting that up.
I mean, I'm just thinking. You know, I thought I heard that somewhere, but
they fucked it up by making it fake Jason. It meant that now he could almost no longer be anybody but Jason, since the family bolted. He had to have legitimate Jason come back. So
which is why 6 is called
Jason Lives. And so they forget all of, they're like, all right, the audience is dumb. They are not going to remember that we said that the body was cremated. Let's just have him get dug up, and then ha ha ha, it's going to be real funny if we do it with an electrical pole. And he gets up, and now this Jason, this is the Jason that everybody thinks of now.
Yes, this is Jason.
The tall, bulky, he walks and does not run. Jason was freaky deaky all about running in the first 4.
Oh, the second one with all those chase scenes in the woods, it's fantastic.
But now he's basically the Terminator, except that instead of the skull face, he's got a hockey mask. He's impervious to bullets, like in a campy way now. It's not trying to be scary the same way. Take a look at the other shift that happens with this movie. This is the first time we're watching sort of like with Jason being the main character in scenes in a way that he was not before. It was always we followed whoever the victim or the prey was, and then Jason would appear or something. But now we're like hanging out with Jason. It's completely changing the entire series. And so people are like, I love part 6. It's so funny, and it's pre-Scream, and it's meta quality. And it's like, yeah, it's all those almost kind of fucked up what this franchise was, because it created a new formula.
Well, I would say Jason had become popular, just the character. So now he becomes the star of the movie.
Well, and then Freddy Krueger just happened.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, if the 5th one was made better, maybe they would have went through with Tommy Jarvis or something. But since it had so much backlash, that's why they brought Jason. It's like, all right, he's coming back. Tommy's going to do it, and he fucked up.
And they had to put it in the title so everybody knew.
Yeah,
Jason lives, and he's going to be.
Jason's in this movie, guys. All right, it's not somebody else.
So they went from literal death to now it's like this black magic occult shit where his body must be returned to the lake whence it rose or what have you. I was under the impression he didn't drown. The series keeps now like mixing its mythology. Either it's about this creature that rises from a lake because he drowned it there, or it's about this weird hermit guy.
Yeah.
And now it's no longer about this being a weird hermit guy who's living in a shack in the woods. He is literally now a zombie who I guess we're supposed to sort of assume the new continuity is that he keeps coming back to life. For whatever reason, Jason keeps coming back to life. So he did drown, and he did come back to life from that. Just like when he took the axe to the head, when he took the machete to the face and then got reanimated by a lightning bolt. So is he a dude who just like keeps coming back from the dead, and has he always been since he was a kid? Because
he hates marijuana. He hates marijuana. And he has to come back.
He hates marijuana and sex and drinking.
Not in his camp.
Yeah.
Now, did this one take place at the camp?
It takes place at a camp. Yeah, because I think don't the
they
people
set
that
up a new
are,
camp. Yeah, it's got a new name and everything.
Yeah, it has a new name, and people that were running it, they end up not showing up. Of course, they're killed, and I think the teenagers are like, "Oh well, let's go ahead and do it." So I mean, they're just.
What was the sheriff's fault? He was like, "Let's go ahead and do it."
The only one that actually has small children in it.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually show up, and Negan is like frantically trying to take charge because people are missing because Jason has murdered them.
Yeah, but they're like, oh, well, they're just not. Oh, okay, well, let's just go ahead with this. And then you got Tommy who's like, hey, this place is cursed, and all this stuff. And of course, we've had that in the other ones where they're like, hey, it has a death curse, and they still go, and now they got Tommy's like, hey, don't go here. There's evil. And people are like, shut the hell up. We're going to have fun.
Talk a little bit about the complete and total, left turn into bad comedy.
This one tries very hard to be funny.
And people think it's funny. And I don't know why people think it's funny.
Look,
but,
that little kid who's like, what did you want to be when you grew up? That's funny.
But now we're no longer scared.
Yeah.
And you would have never heard that in the first two movies in particular.
Right.
Never would have heard that, where they're cracking jokes while Jason is stalking them. Or just all of this grave digger caretaker guy looking at the camera and saying some people have a strange sense of humor. James Bond coming out
breaking the wall.
Yeah, he's like, I graduated high school. I earned this job.
It's just so the entire tone has changed. The kills are totally different now. That fucking scene with the paintballers.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. That's like,
yeah, that was unnecessary.
You have the goofy characters.
It's the first time Harry Manfredini has written quote unquote funny music in this series when they're playing the paintball and it's this shitty, cheesy, military shit with snare drums and stuff. And it's so not funny. A character gets thrown face first against a tree, and when his body falls down, there's a smiley face.
Yeah.
Fuck you lives. Fuck you. Oh God, people who say this is the best one. I just wanna
Call Jason. Jason's funny.
on their Facebook profile.
I was gonna say what it reminds me of. Something I got sick of, starting I guess around this Halloween, was the videos that people would post of the slashers doing the boy band thing. I got so tired of that because I'm just like, it just takes away from it when you have the Slash Street Boys or whatever the fuck they were called.
Slash Street Boys. Yeah,
that was always my problem with even in Nightmare on Elm Street when once he became the wisecracking, it's just like it's not scary anymore. That was my problem with it.
Well, when you got Freddie on MTV rapping with the Fat Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid. Jason. Jason's only MTV thing was the Alice Cooper music video, but did appear.
Was he in Arsenio Hall too?
Yeah. Oh God, that
was Jason Goes to Hell. Jason, wasn't it?
No, that.
Manhattan, Jason.
Yeah, that was your favorite movie.
Yeah,
promoting it. He went on Arsenio Hall, and that is the most cringeworthy thing I think I've seen that they produced. You know what I mean? Like him just going out there, and they're trying to be funny with it, and it was just annoying. I'm like, okay, yeah.
Jason can't talk, so why interview him?
Exactly. That was the joke.
That was the joke. Yeah.
And Arsenio's trying to be Arsenio. He's like, so what do you think? And then you just have that guy just sitting there, and but it kind of plays into what you're saying with this movie. I think you get a bunch of executives and they're like, you know what's hot right now? You know what's really hot? Paintball. Okay, we're going to have a paintball scene, okay? Because that's going to speak to the kids, right? Okay, and then we're going to kind of make it funny because that's what the kids are going to like, and that's all it was. It wasn't for someone like, us thinking about, hey, how's this going to play out? And we kind of dig a story, and this is just another mess that they threw together and said, this is what kids like. They're going to like this. Let's put it all in there and let's see what we got,
I think you definitely have to flip a mental switch, I think, around the time that 5 happens. Because 1, 2, 3, and 4, there's this dark, mysterious being coming out of the woods to take your life brutally. And then by the time you get to 5 and 6, well, now you're watching this guy stomp around and slash deeply unlikable characters. You're not supposed to relate to, you know, the kids anymore. You're
Yeah.
rooting for Jason at this point.
Yeah.
And so it's a totally different, and so you almost have to have the humor, because if you're taking these seriously, then that means that you are
half of the 80s, you know, as we came out of the 70s and then the first half of the 80s, were filled with a lot of very violent films, and not just horror films, but it's around that mid-decade shift as we veered into you know, funny Jason, but also funny Freddy, and you know, all of the slashers were kind of Disney-fied to a certain extent, and the kills got more imaginative and creative, but less gory and less realistic. That's also the same time that people like Schwarzenegger and Stallone stopped making, you know, Conan the Barbarian, and stopped making sort of violent First Blood, you know, and Rambo Part 2. You know, these sort of violent things start turning into, now I'm in Twins, you know, and there's this comedy that seemed very pervasive, particularly with people or franchises that were known as being violent or cynical.
Yeah, I think you definitely see a cultural shift. I think that that's part of the reason why watching all of these movies is really fascinating, is you get to see how are people's mindsets changing over the course of time. And I think you definitely see that here in part 6.
And then part 7, I mean, we have now introduced magic. And part of that is not only to bring Jason back, the one true Jason Voorhees, but Paramount wanted to do Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to do Freddy versus Jason. And New Line was so young at that point that Paramount thought that they could sort of stand on their necks and say, okay, we're going to co-produce this film, but we are going to release it. It's going to be a Paramount film.
And we're going to probably have Jason win also, probably.
What's that?
Or
They're probably going to have Jason win too.
Well, it'd be
Paramount.
Freddy. If a New Line movie, they'd probably have Freddy win.
The title was Jason versus Freddy. That was what Paramount wanted to be called. But while Paramount had the sort of age and pedigree, New Line had the hot property. And they said, fuck off. And so Paramount was left to scramble as Elm Street is putting together, you know, and releasing its third and most imaginative.
With a dream warrior.
That led to the birth of Freddy Krueger pop icon. So fucking Friday the 13th is like, shit. Okay, we can't do Jason versus Freddy. Let's get a telekinetic girl, because like, and we can have visions in there, because that's real big, like in movies right now. The teenagers are having these visions or dreams or whatever that aren't.
Did you ever see Firestarter? Let's do a movie like that.
Yeah, let's do Carrie meets Firestarter meets, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, like sort of mush together all these paranormal and supernatural aspects of these other franchises and try to insert it into Friday the 13th.
Which is why the telekinesis in the 7th movie makes no sense whatsoever. There's no actual rhyme or reason to sort of like the magic that's happening, because it's cobbled together from like such a multitude of sources.
Yes.
You just kind of get dropped into this weird world where this girl can like move things with her mind, and her like weird doctors like trying to force her to like become emotionally unstable so she does it more. And this somehow resurrects Jason.
But what year are we in now?
1980.
No, I mean,
story-wise, this would be, the last movie was 1990.
Yeah, because there was a huge gap between 4, 5 that happened in the movies, but didn't happen in real life, because Tommy Jarvis has to grow up.
But then now we have this issue of Tina, who is a little girl, and then her dad dies. Mm-hmm. Did that happen prior to part 6?
It would have had to have happened almost after part 6, because he's in the lake already. And he wasn't in the lake at the beginning of part 6. He was in a grave. Unless
No,
he was
but
in
no,
the
no,
lake
no,
the
no.
entire time.
What I'm saying is when she kills her
Right.
father accidentally,
Yeah,
is this taking place, this flashback?
yeah.
It does not involve Jason. It involves her dad drowning. Did this occur before or after part 6?
That's a really good question.
Because then you have to ask how far forward a time jump from when Tina is a little girl to when we catch up with her at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And we have to determine where that time jump goes. Is it from the end of part 6? Or is it from the, end of a previous one that makes it happen literally right after 6?
And it's interesting. My assumption was that she had already semi-resurrected Jason to kill her dad. That it wasn't just her mind that killed her father. That she'd sort of like woken Jason, and Jason like there were bubbles, and Jason like pulled him down, and that was like part of how he died too. So yeah, this one is like what?
Yeah. But I did enjoy this one. It was kind of like a grab at the different, stuff that was going on, all the hot stuff and all that. But I did enjoy it. And of course, I always like seeing Kane behind the mask. I like Kane Hodder as Jason.
Do we like prune face Jason? Because this movie, he spends the longest unmasked at the end.
And see, yeah, I mean, I like it. And I believe John Carl Buechler was the director on this one, and he is. I love his stuff. I some of his movies are kind of campy. Ghoulies Go to College was kind of weird, but Terror Vision. You got all this great stuff that this guy does, and I liked his vision for Jason. You're right. We see him unmasked. He looks, more zombie-ish, and I think that. I think they did a good job on that. Yeah, the telekinesis thing kind of silly, but I also enjoyed it, and I know it's my wife's favorite one, so I'm not going to bash it too much because I live here.
This one has an element of like, this one's an interesting take because it is bringing in a very definite element of magic, and like your protagonist is able to use it against Jason too, which I think is really interesting. There's also a lot of like all the teenage stuff in this one is really interesting because there's the really nerdy girl who gives herself a makeover and then wanders around in the woods.
Touch up my ass.
Yeah, but why get all prettied up and go in the woods?
Walking
She
around.
was very competent.
Heels. What the fuck? Look.
Where he's going.
Right. I don't know. I just think that like the teens in this one are moderately interesting. I find them a little bit more like sympathetic than the teens in part 6.
All the dudes
were gay. Yes.
Yes.
Which
And
means there's no chemistry
so
whatsoever.
it makes all of their interactions
they
together
seem really
real
bitchy.
weird.
Yeah. Like each other.
No, but I mean, like couples that are supposed to be together.
Yes.
It's like, she's mad at him because he wants to spend more time with his other obviously gay male friend.
Yes.
It starts influencing the text of the film, and you're
so
like,
fascinating. And then these really awkward conversations between like, oh shoot, what's the name of the girl? Tina and the boy. It's magical. I sort of love it. And then the doctor is like so heavy-handed, and I enjoyed that. And then
Weekend at Bernie's.
The mother's haircut is one of the most fascinating sculptures I've ever seen in my entire life. I am to this day trying to figure out what the fuck is going on with it. That's like 2 inches tall, like all here in the front, and it's like up, but it's like coming down to like an arrow, like a long mullet arrow point in the back.
She looks like an animated. She looks like an animated character. Do you know what I mean?
Insane! It's absolutely insane. Yeah, I appreciate certain weird things about this one.
John Carl Buechler was awesome. He was by all accounts an awesome dude. He did really cool special effects for the Freddy movies and the Jason movies and the
awesome
Myers movies.
And so many of the effects got lost in this one. Which is
yeah. Go ahead.
So good.
They cut the nuts off the movie, the MPAA. it's a very tame film from a guy who was so well known for his special effects makeup and whatnot. To hire him to direct Friday the 13th Part 7 and say it's going to be more gore and violence, but you're also going to get to do fantastical shit, and then cut so much of it is
Now, isn't that stuff lost? Like accidentally they lost it? Like we'll never get to see it, right?
had a no keep policy. They would burn whatever, for something like Friday the 13th. They weren't going to hang on.
And I think
no shit. God damn.
Some dailies, but they are such poor quality that they're almost unwatchable.
They're on VHS, so
Yeah.
you can see them, and then the new Jason box set that just came out.
Did they try to remaster some of them?
I mean, you could only remaster shitty
Right.
copy of a copy. But I mean, it's all we got, and it's a really historical insight. It just really sucks that
it does. I would have loved to seen it. I would have loved to seen that.
I mean, he just died. I would have loved to have seen him be able to, do something with it for the box set.
What we did get though was that excellent house explosion that was melting the cameras because it was much more intense than they intended it to be. And I love watching it because you don't really get to see it properly because the protective lenses on the cameras, you can literally see them like warp from the heat. Like they get completely distorted and it's just so jacked up. And they were lucky no one died when that.
They got some dude from like some backwoods place in Louisiana, and they're like, "Is it going to be hot?" And he go, "Oh yeah, sure, it's going to be hot, but it's all right. You can have your cameras there." And and he just like overdid it.
It was supposed to be multiple explosions, so it was supposed to one part of the house was supposed to go off, and then another part, and then another. Part. Everything went off at once, and it was like an insanely disastrous explosion. Yeah. So
they got a Danny McBride out there. Let's put some jungle. What is it? Billy, you would know this.
Well, Mother Nature just pissed her pants or something like that.
He's just like, woo!
All right, so I have a timeline update. So the end of the last one, whenever Jason goes in the lake, was in 1990.
Okay.
The beginning of this movie, whenever she kills her father, is October 13th, 1991. And then the rest of the film takes place in September of 2001.
What?
Huh.
What?
Nice.
And this movie came out in 88.
Yeah. Is it kind of like, I always trip out whenever I watch the old cartoons of Bugs Bunny and they're like, in the year 1999, and the spaceships are flying around and shit.
What I don't get is at the end of 6, they lure Jason into the lake.
Yes.
And he's at the summer camp. He goes into the water next to the dock. And then they hocus pocus him so that he's chained to this pebble like 2 feet from the
Yeah, like they did not get him very far out there.
I don't even know how the water's deep enough for him to be let alone dragged down by a rock. But whatever, forgive and forget.
He's supposed to be really strong too, so why can't he just rip the chain off and it's like, well, I'm out of here.
Well, because they did the hocus pocus magic thing on him.
If the power of the lake that so killed him originally is all that can subdue him now, fine, we'll run with that. But that he would be a floating hazard to boats and to fishermen and
some kids swimming. Yeah.
I mean, it's right next to the fucking pier.
And Tina's dad, clearly. I mean,
But,
that's the reason why he got dragged down.
Now, envision that shot here for me, okay?
Yeah.
There's the pier,
Mm-hmm.
and there's the water.
Yeah.
If you remember from the end of part 6,
Mm-hmm.
the other side of the lake is kind of like boo-doop, boop-be-doop right there.
Right, yeah.
So it's not very far. We would, number one, be able to see the pier and the private property that was on the other side that we are not seeing. But let's just say we're capturing this view from a strange angle. Nonetheless, Tina's got to live there, have her own pier that's coming out, and then her own dead parent whose body, I guess, was never found.
That is a
in this
really weird
little
thing.
stream in between these two piers.
When the dad comes up out of the lake, that like raises so many questions, because that means he drowned in the lake and his body was like never recovered. Basically, but that doesn't make any sense because it's such a dinky lake.
But now
It's
we have
not
two
huge.
dead bodies floating right next to the shore. Right
Now, you know, I'm not a medical expert by any means, but I've seen enough, you know, like true crime stuff, and also on, you know, the TV shows. When a body's in water, they blow it up, right?
And typically floating.
How is it not a bloated corpse?
Exactly, and then it would pop, and there would be this toxic spillage into the lake.
Yeah.
It would be really gross. But the point is, there are two dead bodies right next to one another, right there next to the pier, and somehow Tina's house, the pier crumbles and falls into the lake. And again, there's like that much wreckage. You would not be able to swim or have a boat right there.
No.
It's impossible. So it sits there for how many years? 10 years? 11 years?
Like, how old is she in the first? 1991, and then 1990, or no, 2000.
2001. Yeah.
10
years.
Interesting. So do you think that perhaps the reason why they didn't live at that house anymore had less to do with like the trauma of the dad's death, since he was clearly a piece of shit? He was a wife beater and a drunk.
Yeah.
That person.
Do we think that they vacated the house because of the trauma of that incident, or rather because it was really fucking annoying with the kids from camp coming over across the narrow band of water to like fuck and smoke cigarettes, you know, apparently out of view of the counselors over there on the neighbor's property? Because I would vote for that.
I think it was selfish of her to waste all of her time with that telekinetic powers down there in Crystal Lake and not stop 9/11. I'm just saying. It was in 2000.
Right.
Sorry, bad joke. Too soon.
So this, I think this movie probably has the most iconic kill, and that's the sleeping bag against the tree scene, right? Is that the most iconic? Is that the one everybody thinks about?
I don't know. I'm still Mark with the machete to the face and the wheelchair down the stairs.
Yeah, that is a good one. But no, I think that the sleeping bag is definitely considered an iconic one. I think that a lot of people think of that one as being like up.
So much that they brought it back in a later film that we'll get to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it cool or is it scary? It's not. We're now with Jason
none of the kills are scary anymore.
I think that we're now sort of like in the zone of how cool is this kill? Like, how different is it? How much does it make you go, oh, that was interesting? Yeah. And also, I think that a lot of them, it's almost like Jason's art now, like these movies, and like what can he do to people that is like sort of in his wheelhouse? Because he's not like our other two in the main three series, in that he's constantly picking up new weapons. He's like just sort of scoping out his environment and finding new stuff. And I think that sleeping bag one is cool in the sense that he's not grabbing an actual weapon. He's just like he's just looking around and he's like, okay, I guess I'll just like use some force and like whack this kid against centripetal. That's the right word, I promise. Centripetal. Yeah, you can look it up. Centripetal. Anyway, he whacks the girl against the tree with the sleeping bag, and that I think is like, that's an iconic Jason move. I think
that is. I like that one. I like that too.
I think that's a great word.
Thank you.
Centripetal.
My new band's name.
There you go.
Yes.
All right. So, 1989, we get Jason Takes Manhattan.
Billy's favorite movie.
Yes.
And I think he should kick it off because it's his favorite movie.
Why is this your favorite Friday the 13th?
Well, like I said, it was the only movie we had of the Jason movies that we had on VHS. and I probably watched that one more than any other Jason movie ever. And I used to be able to quote it quote by quote, but it's been a while since I saw it until recently. So, but no, it's my favorite. It's like, it took Jason out of his element from Camp Crystal Lake into New York, which is different, and he still was brutal as hell in these movies. In this movie, and some of it was funny, like the boxing. What did you hit the guy once and his head like pops off or something?
Yeah, that was
just-
silly. Yeah.
It's like, why are you hitting him with the mask? Like, all you're doing is just bloodying your knuckles even more.
I find this one so delightful for a multitude of reasons. And I remember the first time that Eric and I went and watched through all of these together. This was one of the ones that made me sit up and go, oh my God, this is wacky, because you have this girl, she has this pen that is a fountain pen that is supposedly like Stephen King's pen that he used when he was in high school. Stephen King, who by the way was like a destitute poor child who was like scrapping together pennies to publish his newspaper at school, like, yes, had this fancy fountain pen, and she's like handed, it's Stephen King's pen. I'm just delighted by that. And then the fact that they are in what is clearly a lake in Canada, like they're in like Rocky Mountains on a boat that's clearly like a defunct fishing vessel. Like, this thing just got decommissioned from like sailing out in the Alaskan Ocean to like grab crabs, and it's a cruise ship that they're gonna like sail out of Crystal Lake, which was originally in New Jersey and was almost definitely a landlocked lake in the middle of like the mountains. They're now going to like sail this boat down some dinky river to go to New York City on this cruise. What is happening? Nothing makes sense. And like, once it gets to Manhattan, it's Canada, and the graffiti that's on the walls is literally in chalk. I like, this one is insane, and I just love the zany wackiness of it. And I find it very charming. And I feel like this is like kind of peak Kane Hodder. Like especially the kill of the girl on the dance floor. Like, it's so simple and it's so lovely. And I love hearing him talk about how he told this actress, I'm going to like pick you up and then you just have to go limp and I'm going to throw you on the floor. And she executes it perfectly. And it had to have been like terrible and brutal and hurt like hell, but she just does it. And that one is probably one of my favorite kills, just due to her commitment.
And that girl was named Kelly Who.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Who went
My
on to
favorite
play?
kill is when he gets the guy with the when he's like what's in the steamer room or whatever, and he gets to grab that handful of whatever the fuck it was and like jabs it right in his fucking stomach. That was a pretty cool fucking kill.
Now, I do have a question. What timeline is this?
I guess at this point they're just giving up on. So
Yeah.
I guess this would have to be.
Is this supposed to be 2008? I mean,
2020.
Question. We go into a flashback where Charles McCullough,
because this one has going backwards too.
he attempted to murder his niece while teaching her how to
What
swim
the fuck is
in a lake
this?
where
That
she
is
states
fucked up.
that Jason Voorhees drowned her.
Yes.
He states that very, very clearly, and then
Yes.
he shoves her into the water. When did that happen?
Yeah.
Did that happen somewhere nestled into the sequels? Or are we starting with sort of saying that happened after part 7?
Well, and note
now
that
we're jumping forward in the future from that.
the baby Jason that she sees as she's drowning is baby Jason.
Okay,
it's
I want to
not
talk.
adult Jason.
I want to talk about Jason.
Okay.
Talk about Jason.
This one's nuts, and I love it. I love how nuts this one is.
Oh, you're talking when he says "mommy" in the sewer,
Uh,
mommy, and the water's just rushing.
toxic waste at a specific time every night. Toxic waste that can it doesn't even melt Jason. It transforms him back into a child.
Now that Megan has sort of spoiled where I was going to go.
That's what I do.
Yeah, Jason is now. So Jason did drown. We are sticking with that mythology.
Yes.
But the Jason that we're seeing is a reasonably normal-looking child with a full head of healthy black hair.
Yes.
But as Rennie continues to have weird visions,
Yes.
his visage changes.
Uh-huh.
And he begins to become, what was at the time very, unflattering and unkind word, mongoloid. That was how Tom Savini designed him for the original film, those flashbacks. So he started to take on those facial characteristics with the one eye that droops and things like that. And then his hair altogether outright falls out. And he's full little Jason that we saw more or less in those flashbacks in the first film.
Yeah.
But then he's a normal kid again with a full head of hair.
Yeah.
I rack my brain trying to understand the symbolism of each appearance and can find none.
Look, I think all you need to know about the movie is that this is the fountain pen that Stephen King used.
And that's all we need.
Maybe that's what her interpretation was of Jason, since she really doesn't know what he looked like. So she's like, he was just a regular kid that drowned. They never said.
Yeah.
I don't think they said in the movie, hey, he was he had a droopy eye and he had only hair in certain places and stuff like that. They probably didn't tell her that, so she probably thought, oh, he was just a normal boy and he just drowned.
Yeah, you definitely, I think you see a lot of this movie. We're back with, I feel like Rennie is the main character in this one. It's not Jason so much as it is, you are back with having an actual final girl.
Yes, but a couple of things. First of all, this and the last one, I guess starting with part 6, they're really establishing this precedent that there isn't a final girl anymore. There's a final couple.
Right, yeah.
Right, yeah.
6, 7, and here again in 8. Friday the 13th started off the whole survivor child idea as well, that they did in 4 with Corey Feldman, and they did again in 5 with Reggie, and then you start seeing in other franchises, Danielle Harris in Halloween 4 and 5. But irrespective of that, it's just that we are now dealing with magic, and we've got this final couple that is in the sewer that, as Megan pointed out, floods every night with toxic waste.
It's New York. I mean, obviously.
That's how the turtles became turtles.
Wait a minute, we have a crossover now?
Yeah. The Ninja Turtles versus Jason.
It takes Jason, who spent this entire movie very wet.
Yeah.
He's very, very wet. Underwater for so long. In the previous movie, he's very dry.
Yeah.
Even though he'd been under the water for a long time too. I digress. Point is that this mushy Jason, his mask comes off. He's got the stupidest fucking paper jack-o'-lantern head that they then cover in ooze because it's supposed to be melting.
Yes.
And this melting reduces him to a small child.
Why?
So is that literal? Okay. Are the maintenance guy going to come by and find a dead kid lying in the tunnel? And if so, will his dental records and fingerprints and everything match a child who died back in, what year are we in at this fucking point?
Well, I can tell you right now, this takes place 1 year after the last movie, so we're now in 2002.
Which we still have boom boxes being listened to on the street.
You're like, how does he match perfectly a child who drowned at Camp Crystal Lake in 1957?
Yeah.
It's like international news. It was this clone, or how would people interpret this fucking kid lying there who is a dead kid from a really long time ago?
Yeah.
There's your Twilight Zone number 1. Twilight Zone number 2. Did Jason get cleansed by toxic waste? And if so, what does that say about toxic waste?
Well, see, wasn't that, I'm sorry to cut you off, Eric. Wasn't that around the time they were all, that was late 80s, right? And 90s, everything was about toxic waste and how it's doing this to the environment. And the classic villain. He's in a suit and he's just like, yeah, just dump it in the water or whatever.
Telling us that we should cheer for toxic waste is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because
it cured Jason.
Yeah,
it cured him.
It stopped a massive serial killer.
If he was reduced to a small child, was he dead? Because he just looked like he was kind of shivering to me.
He was cold.
So the waste cleaned the sins.
And where did his clothes go? How did he get back to just the swimming trunks?
Right.
Yeah.
Mysteries in this movie, like how did Rennie recover so quickly from being injected with what I'm guessing was heroin? The rather abrupt, explosive death of her favorite teacher in the cab. I don't know why it exploded.
And then they decide they're going to go sightseeing on the top of the Statue of Liberty while there's all these homicides that have occurred.
Maybe they are the killers, and Jason wasn't even. It was a figment of their imagination, and they were the killers.
By the way, if they climb up the Eiffel Tower, you know what everyone that's there is going to be doing? They're going to be given a wide berth because those two smell like shit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Just running around and splashing in a sewer.
After they had to. Did they swim? No, Jason swam ashore. They were in a life raft.
Right, but then they were running
vessel.
around in a sewer, a shit-filled, piss-filled, toxic waste-filled sewer, and they smell bad.
They do. Yeah.
They smell really bad. I'd be like, first order of business, we are bathing.
Yeah.
Well, they probably didn't mention because I heard New York smells crappy anyway. Am I right?
Oh man.
It's just that New York smell.
William Hopkins, we do not endorse what Billy says on here.
I mean, no disrespect.
Yeah, I guess the bigger question though is why did they think that they had to leave Crystal Lake and do a Jason Takes Manhattan? Why did they feel the need to do it?
I mean, I think that the initial idea was that it was all going to be in Manhattan, and I think they were just trying to find some way to shake it up because I think that they were sort of at a point where they felt like sticking around Crystal Lake was just not that interesting anymore.
And this is the peak of Freddy Mania, where it's about those movies are a roller coaster. They're creative.
Yeah.
And it's suddenly the mandate is Friday the 13th is that's your dad's slasher.
And they were
it's not cool anymore.
They were originally planning to film most of it in New York, and then the budget just kept getting slashed and slashed and slashed. And then I can guarantee you, this is 100% my theory. Someone in production was given $30,000 or $40,000, and they saw an ad for an old fishing boat, and they bought it. And everyone was like, what are we going to do with this fishing boat? Now we have a fishing boat, and half the movie takes place on an old fishing boat.
Yeah, but
put it in the movie. Put it in the movie.
I know that we said that the punching the head off was the worst scene.
No,
but I think the worst scene is whenever Jason walks past the punks and knocks over their boombox. And of course, they're going to attack him, and he raises his mask up, and I'm just like, why?
No,
why?
The worst kill. I'm sorry. I thought you were going in the same direction where I'm thinking, dude. The worst kill was when he gets that girl through that small circular window thing on the bottom. I laughed my ass off when I first saw it. I was like, this is so stupid. How's he going to do that? Wasn't it like a tiny little hole or something, like a window, and he just pulls her right through it?
There's also a deeply uncomfortable moment where a student attempts to seduce.
Again, y'all mentioned that in the first one. Again, an old guy trying to get with a young.
And the end of an era, because that's the same year that we got Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Dream Child, which underperformed spectacularly. This was also Halloween 5, the Revenge of Michael Myers.
Kittens!
Jesus, that fucking movie. You got this, and it was all three franchises that kind of jumped the shark.
Mm-hmm.
we don't see another Freddy movie for 2 years, which was weird because we expected these movies annually. We didn't see another Friday the 13th for another 4 years, or Michael Myers until 95. And so this is the end. What we're looking at. This is the end of the 80s, and this is the end of the Paramount run with the films, because they said this isn't worth it to us anymore. We don't want the property. And everything after this is under a new parent company. It's New Line Cinema, being in the position now to scoop up this property and decide if they wanted to do Freddy versus Jason, they would be able to do it on their own terms. So everything changes after this.
Yeah.
Which movie, like out of Freddy and Jason, which movies had the better movies, or which one to you is the better franchise?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Whereas I very much prefer Friday the 13th. I think that I can watch Friday the 13th. I find more enjoyment out of them, and I think that Eric and I both agree that like Halloween ranks at the bottom of the big three for us. Yes. I would rather watch all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres than the Halloween series again.
Oh my God. And we're even talking about, hold on, are you even including the one with Matthew McConaughey and Texas Chainsaw Next Generation?
Look, that one's Banana Pants.
Yeah.
I'll take that over some of the other ones. Yeah, I'm an Elm Street guy, and I love Friday the 13th. But I'm an Elm Street guy.
Look, that second Halloween Rob Zombie movie, I never want to see it again ever in my entire life. It's just a lot of screaming. I can't handle it.
Don't get me started with the Halloween remakes.
Hold on. I will give now the Rob Zombie. I'm a huge Rob Zombie fan. I love his stuff. I do. The Halloween thing, kind of what I was thinking about when y'all were talking about the first half of this series, when Eric was like, okay, so he was just a mountain man and stuff, and he's in a sack, and then all of a sudden he's shaved and everything. I love how Rob Zombie did that. In the first one, he has a mask, and then he just, at the end, he goes off wherever he's in the woods. Then the next time we see him, he has a long, nasty beard. The mask is torn up, and he's living in a shack or something. He's on the run. And I think that that's why I do like it. Yes, part 2 is batshit crazy. It's like a Rob Zombie fever dream or whatever. But I did enjoy that aspect of it. I'm like, man, he actually, taken from the other movies when we're supposed to think, okay, this guy's gone for a long time. He's in the freaking woods. He's, he should look beat up, or the hockey mask should have like dirt on it or mold or, something to show that it was, out there in the elements.
Well, if we are now at the end of what we would consider
like slashers,
classic Friday the 13th, and the next conversation is going to be just as interesting, I think. But at any rate, if we're at the end of at least the Paramount years and the 80s, can we rank all 8 films, our personal rankings, and then also rank our Jasons?
Okay.
All right. Who wants to go first?
I'm sorry, y'all was breaking up. What was the last thing you said?
So who wants to go first?
Oh, okay. Well, no, we're going to rank the movies and the Jasons, right, Eric? Yes. Your favorites. So I'm going to say part 2, of course, like I said in the beginning, I love that Jason, and I love that movie. Part 7, same thing. And part 6, I do like the part 6 Jason. I do like how his look was. He has that big freaking spear and everything. So I did enjoy that. So yeah, I those are mine. 2, 6, and 7, with the Jasons as well.
Yeah, I would have to go 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 3, 6, 5. Our lists are really different.
Broke my heart a little
I'm
bit. Which Jasons are your favorite?
I mean, my favorite Jason is Sackhead Jason. So like 2.
Right, but then
after that, like, and then after that, I don't know. Probably again, I think I mentioned earlier, like 8 is like peak Kane Hodder Jason.
So you like Kane Hodder Jason?
I like how Kane Hodder is in the films as they sort of exist at that point. I think that he does a good job embodying the type of character that is sort of being portrayed by that point. So I think that is his best,
So like, you're saying that you like his performance as the character more than the character itself.
I like his performance as Zombie Jason.
Okay, do you like Zombie Jason?
I don't love Zombie Jason.
Okay.
I prefer Sackhead Jason.
So like, human being
Yes,
Jason.
human being Sackhead Jason.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, it's 2, 1, 4, 3, 5, 8, 7. Fuck you, 6. And I'll take any of the Jasons from the first or the second, third, and fourth. I think probably Richard Brooker in part 3 is real good. He's real good. These guys live or die by their body language.
Yeah.
And I think part 3 is really good. Ted White in part 4 is pretty menacing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the whole, C.J. Graham / Kane Hodder / Ken Kurtzinger lumbering zombie thing.
Yeah. But I mean, by that point, that's just sort of what the movie's required. So if I'm going to have Zombie Jason, I want the Kane Hodder Zombie Jason.
Billy, go ahead.
8, 4, 5, 2, 1, and then the rest can fall to whatever category. Fair Jason is Fair Jason, probably Sackhead Jason. I do like Zombie Kane Hodder Jason.
All right, so two, 4, 1, 6, 3, and then if I never watch the other ones, I'm fine. Like those are my favorite ones. Sackhead Jason is my favorite Jason, but I'm gonna go with Kane Hodder as like Zombie Jason. He really that's probably my favorite. Like Zombie Jason would be the Kane Hodder. I think it's the deep, heavy breathing that he does when he's just standing still.
Yeah.
He's a corpse. What does he have to breathe for?
Well, I know, but it's still it gives it that. I don't know. There's something about.
He's got allergies.
Yeah.
High mold count where he was at.
Quality to it. Like he's only doing it because he remembers doing it before and not because there's actually like it's providing life to him. I feel like it's interesting. I think that Kane Hodder put like a lot of thought into his portrayal. And so I think that he has these very specific expressive things that he does when he's playing that Jason.
He does a great job. I mean, he's very charismatic with his movement.
And he has this like very specific like lock-on stare that I think that he does that like none of the other Jasons do. That's very specific to him that I appreciate because it creates this like cat and mouse kind of thing that works once you get into that part of the series.
I just like my Jason to be tall and broad without also having to look like a fucking, knuckle.
Sure.
I even like the Jason and Jason versus Freddy. I thought the guy that played Jason there did a pretty good job. I actually like the look of the role.
I think we're gonna have to do a part 3 because there's so much in part 9 I want to talk about.
I agree. Then maybe we should do part 3, the New Line years.
Yeah, I mean, oh man, part 9.
And then we should do a Nightmare on Elm Street discussion too after the Friday 13th.
Oh man, I'd love to do that.
And then the Texas Chainsaw Massacres.
Yeah.
I'm down.
I'm here for it.
Oh yeah.
I love this series. I feel like even when these movies are incredibly dumb, they're still fun. And like they very occasionally make me irritated, but never full on angry. Like when you get into Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy's dead, just like makes me full on just want to throw the TV out the window. I never feel that way with Friday the 13th. There are moments where I'm like, why would you do that? That's dumb. But it doesn't like send me into a rage because it knows what it is and it knows that it's dumb. And I appreciate the way it occasionally embraces that.
I think that's where we disagree because
Yes.
I feel like what you're saying is you get angrier at Nightmare on Elm Street because it's capable of so much more.
Well, yeah.
Whereas Yes, because it's so dumb and stupid anyway.
I can watch us like if we're doing the whole franchise, I can watch every single Jason movie without going like, oh, because I can have fun with it because it knows it's stupid. But when like Friday the 13th gets into the weeds, it's being self-serious about it in a way that just makes me insane.
Friday the 13th.
I'm sorry, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Megan because I think out of the two franchises, Friday the 13th is probably my favorite. And where Nightmare on Elm Street loses me is when they went and made him comical. When Freddy started doing the one-liners and all that, it loses me. Whereas with this series, it doesn't matter that the continuity doesn't match throughout the movies because it's just a guy killing people.
See, and I do love Friday the 13th as well, but I'm with Eric. I'm an Elm Street guy too. Sorry, Megan, you were going to say something. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Nightmare on Elm Street has better movies in it, I would say. I think that Nightmare on Elm Street has films in it that are more compelling and better made and scarier than anything that you get in Friday the 13th. It's just that it also like has some stuff in it that just infuriates me. Whereas this one, it maybe doesn't ever like reach quite the same heights, but it also doesn't ever get quite so just fucking groan worthy awful. So yeah, that's why I like Jason, because he's mediocre.
Hey Eric, I got a question to ask you. You ever hear about the Friday 13th movie that was supposed to be made by the writer from Prisoners and directed by the guy from The Crazies? That they were going to make. They had the script done. They were getting ready for it, and then the legal battle started happening. And it was supposed to be a real good movie because I looked at this guy called Script Shadow where he reviews script, and he said it was an excellent script. And sometimes he'll show links where you can actually read the script yourself. But do you think it will ever get made? Or do you think the legal problems are just too much? And
I think it'll get made at some point. You
think it's be the same script, or do you think it'll be something different?
I don't know. It's really hard to say because you get these projects that are embroiled in lawsuits, and then the creative interested parties end up jumping ship because it's taking too long to get it off the ground. And they've been trying to do Jason, this particular one, Jason Found Footage, Jason in the Snow.
No, Jason in the Snow sounds interesting. Found Footage, no.
Never hike in the snow. Don't hike in the snow. Don't hike in the woods. Yeah.
Never Hike Alone.
Oh yeah, Never Hike. I'm sorry, Never Hike Alone. Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, it's I don't know. It's gonna probably be one of those situations where Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham are probably gonna have to die. They're both older gentlemen, and I certainly don't wish any poor health upon either.
Yeah.
But they have been going back and forth about this for a very, very long time, and it's sad because I never understood, and I realize we're probably looking at an episode 3 here, so I don't want to get too far ahead. But you had that period in the aughts where Platinum Dunes was remaking all of these films, and they jump-started it with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they would ultimately go on to do Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. And the films, while being successful, were only sort of moderately successful. They weren't the big explosions that were anticipated. And I think part of the reason they underperformed is that these movies were historically made for nothing. They were made for no money at all. And now we're like, throwing tens of millions of dollars at these films. And now they cost more. And who can we get from the CW to star in it? And, trying to get all of these named people. And when all is said and done, you end up with an expensive film that has to perform a certain way instead of spending fucking, $10 million on it and just reaping profit. So we never got sequels to those remakes.
Yeah.
We got the one prequel for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they all just kind of like were one and done. And it's I don't know. I'm hoping that when they appear again, it's going to be special.
Yeah, I hope so too. Because that script, they were going to reboot it, and the guy wrote the script, and it was going to introduce Jason's father and his mother, and it was going to be a human Jason, not like a zombie Jason and stuff like that. But it sounded interesting, and then the legal problems happened. And it's like, well, it looks like that's not going to happen.
Now,
or if not, they probably won't use the same script.
I think the one way to do this is to have Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller in a steel cage match coming up on SummerSlam, and
Whoever wins gets the right.
something like, or with the briefcase and the ladder, like whoever gets to it first.
I got
one of them dresses up as Jason, one of them dresses up as Freddy.
I got a better idea. They're both men who are sort of, in the twilights of their careers in certain respects. Victor Miller is still, pumping along. But the fact is they are older men, and how awesome would it be to say, look, let's make one more of these things on the cheap. I'm going to write a script, and you're going to produce and or direct it, or hire the director to make it, and it becomes another collaboration between the two rights holders, and they make a shitload of money from it.
Yeah.
Why not go out that way instead of just back and forth in court?
Well, they got lawyers involved, and you know how that goes. But yeah, I enjoyed talking about these. And there's another fan film. I don't know if you heard of it, Eric. Friday the 13th Vengeance. They kind of go into the lore of Jason's father, and I thought that was pretty well done. So check that out. And that, I think that falls. I can't remember what movies it falls between, but it's pretty good. Pretty good stuff.
Watch those for when we continue this conversation.
For sure.
All right, so Billy, where can we find you on the internet?
Well, since I made a new Twitter, I'm not, because my other one got suspended. I can't remember what can't remember what it's on. I think my name's Doom on Twitter, maybe. I can't remember.
Okay.
And Doom on the Slasher app.
All right, Mr. Poe.
I'm just gonna say that they can find me at They Call Me Mr. Poe on pretty much anything. And I just want to shout out, and I'm humbled that Eric shouts out our stuff every time he's on here. So go watch and rate Butterfly Kisses on Prime, on Tubi as well. You can catch it on Tubi if you don't have Prime. And give him a 5-star rating. And of course, check out Megan's books on Amazon. Megan, do you want to say? I'm trying to remember the names of it. You got like 3 of them, right?
I have The Altered Wake.
The Altered Wake. There you go.
My sci-fi fantasy novel. And,
awesome.
And I've got 2 pieces in The Blink of an Eye, which is based on. And also has a short story in this, which doesn't get mentioned very often. And then I'm working on my second novel.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Eric, where can everybody find your stuff at?
Butterfly Kisses. You can find it streaming on Prime. Roulette, you can find this also streaming on Prime, or you can get them on Blu-ray. And I also write film criticism for Ain't It Cool News. You can find me typically on the platforms as EKM or Eric Christopher Myers. Thank you, Mr. Poe, for the shout out.
Thank y'all for always coming on here and putting up with us.
It's a lot of fun, and it's an honor to constantly be asked back. And listeners, please support all of the artists right now, the filmmakers and the writers and the podcasters who have given us so much joy during a joyless year.
All right. And of course, you can find me on Twitter. I'm on 1313A. Of course, the show has a Twitter. We have a Facebook group and a Facebook page. We're on Instagram. And what else are we on? We're on Snapchat.
We're gonna make an OnlyFans one day.
An OnlyFans. Hey, I made us a TikTok as well.
We're on TikTok. All right.
On TikTok as well.
And Billy, I had an idea for you. I think you should do a coffee table book of your selfies that you take in the bathroom at work.
Oh, you know what's funny? Okay, I meant to mention this last time before we go. Billy, I was looking for a podcast from beneath. I wanted just to find the lettering, Carrie, that you one of the letterings you made, and I Googled it. And in the Google search, you keep going down, there's Billy on the shitter. So
really?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. We classed up this show just a little bit more every day.
I try to keep it classy.
I do want to point out one final note. Mr. Poe, as I'm looking at you, I'm not wearing my glasses right now.
Yeah.
Because they cause quite the reflective glare, and I would like to be kind to, as does my shiny head, all viewers. With that being said, because I can't see, and because you are a very, very out of focus.
Oh, my lighting's off. Yes.
Your headphones, in tandem with the baseball cap that you are wearing, which I now identify as a baseball cap, created an optical illusion wherein, to me, I've been sitting here thinking you were wearing a pilot's helmet. And wondering the entire time you're wearing a pilot's helmet.
You know what? Now I'm gonna find a pilot's helmet and I'll wear it on the next one.
He thought this was our Top Gun episode.
Yeah,
our Top Gun.
Intellectually, I now know what you're really wearing, and I'm tempted to put the glasses on. So I go, "Oh, I see."
Yeah, I chose a ball cap to wear this time.
You look like a space ball, sir.
All right. Well, Eric, Megan, thank you guys for coming back on here. Look forward to coming back for part 3. And like I said, I'm still trying to plan a year in review, or we can just get on here and just talk about whatever we've done this year, which is probably not a lot.
Yeah, I haven't got to see too many movies this year that were that I actually really liked. Like, I can only think of a few.
And
I don't even know if I can make a top 10.
Well, we haven't covered a lot of newer movies on here, so but I would like to get you guys back on here to do that, and of course part 3 of our Friday 13th series, Nightmare on Elm Street, and anything else that you guys want to talk about. I would be more than happy to have you guys back on.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
All right, and until next week, everybody, thanks for listening, and we will continue to watch the good, the bad, and the cheaply made.